Are you thinking about converting your school or your district school to a blended learning environment? Are you in the beginning stages of opening a new school that will be blended? Maybe you already have a blended learning environment, but it is not producing the results you were expecting. If so, we can help. There are many things to consider when planning a blended learning environment, but before you start to discuss those details, you should consider the larger issue of learning organization and its impact on your planning process. Team learning. When you are interested in implementing a blended learning environment, the first thing to consider is the team. What type of team you assemble depends on what type of blended learning space you are planning. Is it a small change in the classroom or in a school, or is it a district-wide implementation of a brand new blended learning plan? This dictates the type of team. Consider, do you need a functional team, a lightweight team, or a heavyweight team? Team learning is important with any level team, but the more complex the issues, the more complex the team dynamics become. Senge writes, within organizations, team learning has three critical dimensions. First, there is the need to think insightfully about complex issues. Here, the team must learn to tap the potential for many minds to become more intelligent than one mind. Second, there is the need for innovative, coordinated action. Third, there is the role of the team members on the other teams. No matter the size of the team, for the team to be most effective, they need to master the practices of dialogue versus discussion. With dialogue, team members put their seniority aside and have open flow of ideas from one to the other. There is no defense of preconceived position, but instead an open exchange of ideas. With discussion, different ideas are presented and defended, and decisions are made. These both have their places. Dialogue is especially important in brainstorming and early planning stages. It is beneficial when discussing the advantages and disadvantages of different types of blended classrooms. For example, what are the benefits for the school with the different rotation models? What are the advantages of the flex model? What are the disadvantages? In dialogue, no one is defending one style over another, but instead, everyone contributes to the conversation on an equal level and all ideas are considered. The ideas flow back and forth. In a discussion, decisions are being made. Building shared vision. To get everyone involved in the project vested in its success, it is important to build a shared vision. The planning team needs to be involved in this, but if possible, everyone, from teachers to parents to students, should also be involved in building shared vision. If a vision statement is decreed from the superintendent, the other people involved may only express apathy or grudging compliance. Like the teacher who is forced to lead a blended class but does not have the proper training or shared vision and instead just sits back at his desk and complains. Instead, we want to take everyone's personal visions and convert them into a shared vision. If the teacher is consulted about what his vision is for the new blended learning environment, he will feel enrollment and possibly even commitment in the new model. The same holds true for students and their parents. The more people that become enrolled and committed to the new plan, the more likely the success. Mental models. Senge writes, new insights fail to put into practice because they conflict with deeply held internal images of how the world works, images that limit us to familiar ways of thinking and acting. For years, we have been limited to thinking of education as a teacher-led lecture to students sitting in rows of desks. With the development of technology, a whole new way of educating has become available to us. The challenge is to break the mental model of what education traditionally is and explore what it can be. Something to consider when working with others is the importance of balancing inquiry and advocacy. Educators and parents are both excellent advocates. When planning a blended learning environment, administrators, teachers, and parents may all advocate for different positions. Pure advocacy causes each party to become more entrenched in their viewpoint and less open to the views of others. Instead, approach the conversation with inquiry. Ask questions. By asking questions, you demonstrate openness to the other party's thoughts. Senge writes, when advocating your view, make your own reasoning explicit, encourage others to explore your view, encourage others to provide different views, actively inquire into others' views that differ from your own. When inquiring into others' views, state your assumptions clearly, state data upon which your assumptions are based, be generally interested in the other's response, and if you arrive at an impasse, ask what data or logic may change their views. Ask if there is a way you can work together to provide new information. When you realize how to recognize mental models in both yourself and others, better quality discourse can be achieved. Personal mastery. Mastery in this context means gaining special level of proficiency, much like a master painter or a master craftsman does. Senge writes, personal mastery is the discipline of continually clarifying and deepening our personal vision, of focusing our energies, of developing patience, and seeing reality objectively. When creating a blended learning environment, we do not always get it right the first time, or the second, or the third. Senge defines failure as, failure is simply a shortfall, evidence of the gap between vision and current reality. Failure is an opportunity for learning about inaccurate pictures of current reality, about strategies that didn't work as expected, about the clarity of vision. Take Summit Public Schools as an example. In Blended by Horn and Staker, they used Summit as an example of a blended school that required change. Summit had received national acclaim for their program, and despite outperforming peers, the school's leaders recognized that the schools were not meeting their students' needs. Upon graduating, students were struggling when they arrived at college. So instead of being married to the current strategy, they changed their strategy, but they remained true to their vision. Change. Summit Public Schools acts as a model for positive change. Senge quotes a consultant who said, "People don't resist change, they resist being changed." He writes, "If first choice in pursuing personal mastery is to be true to your own vision, the second fundamental choice in support of personal mastery is commitment to the truth." When making decisions on blended learning, it is important to remember your vision, but it is also important to face hard truths and make changes as needed. Because blended learning is a new way of learning, mistakes will be made and better ways of doing things will be discovered. It is important to adapt to these truths to be successful. Systems thinking. Senge writes, "Systems thinking is a discipline for seeing wholes. It is a framework for seeing interrelationships rather than things, for seeing patterns of change rather than static snapshots. Systems thinking is a way of looking at the whole plan instead of at the individual pieces." In systems thinking, the issues of one part of the whole affect the rest, not in a line, but in a circle. The issues do not cause a chain effect so much as a circle of cause and effect. The solution to one problem can temporarily make it better, but in the long run make the original problem worse. Take our bored teacher as an example. A simple, obvious change would be to allow him to stop teaching in the blended classroom that has made him so unhappy and return to the traditional way of doing things. But meanwhile, the students in the other blended classrooms are improving exponentially. The traditional style teacher's students are falling further and further behind. So the teacher becomes even more unhappy than he was before and is at a high risk of losing his job. Instead, if he had been provided with training and included in the planning, he would have become enrolled in the new way of doing things and his students would have improved as well. Remember, when you begin planning your blended learning environment, remember these 5 disciplines of learning organization. If your blended learning environment is not living up to your vision, perhaps systems thinking, personal mastery, mental models, building shared vision, and team learning can be the key to unlocking your solution. Good luck.